Europe has a population problem. Here's what you need to know. Here's how it's going to affect you. And this is how you can make a business out of it. Let's talk about it now. Hi, I'm Oliver and welcome back to the channel Ask Me Startup, where we talk about startups, small businesses, and the world that surrounds them. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and pushing the notification bell so YouTube lets you know whenever I'm uploading new content. If you're into business, if you have a small business, please feel free to download my free startup checklist, link in the description below. So today's topic is a really relevant topic for each and everyone living in Europe, planning to live in Europe, planning to do business in Europe. The data I'm presenting to you today have been taken from a report from the European Commission called The Impact of the Demographic Change. Whatever you do, no matter what type of business, the change in demographic determines your outcome. For instance, I know that everybody is aware that, yes, we have aging population. That is true for almost all the parts in Europe, all the parts in the US, maybe also all the parts in Asia. But the change in demographic is drastic in Europe. And Europe is the oldest continent of them all, meaning the population living here are among the oldest on average than anywhere else. Before we start, I would like to draw your attention to the following map showing the life expectancy on average in the European Union states. In order to read that map, you take colors such as yellow, orange, red, deep purple as a shorter amount of lifespan, something below 76 or up to 78 years, something like this in the range. The light blue colors and the brighter blue colors means you have larger life expectancy, something above 80 plus. And if you look at that map carefully again, now you can see that, wait a minute, so Eastern European countries seem to have a lower life expectancy, with Bulgaria, Romania, Poland being like on average on the lower part still, but then also the Baltic state, Lithuania, Estonia have a lower life expectancy. That becomes relevant because whatever you do, whenever you think about starting a business, maybe in the elderly care, means that you will lose your customers much quicker here than, for instance, somewhere else in Europe. But there's more to know. What are the drivers of this change? So now you've seen that we get a more diverse spectrum of life expectancy depending on where you live in Europe, with the more Eastern countries, Eastern European countries having a lower life expectancy. But in general, we have a demographic change in Europe. And this change is significant because it will impact everybody's life. And the prognosis on this report have been up to the year 2070. Now that might seem far away, but even if you just look 20 years ahead, there are significant changes coming up for us, for all of us, and they will have impact on the way you plan your business, you execute your business, you coming to Europe to start your business. So what are the drivers of the demographic change in Europe? Well, we got a longer life expectancy, better healthcare, all these things play into role. We have fewer births. That has a big implication because Europe's population is shrinking. We get an aging population because of all the combined factors we're already using here. We have smaller households, meaning not every family has 2 kids or more. Maybe there are no kids at all. We have a more mobile Europe, means people are migrating all over Europe where they like life better or maybe find a better job. And we got a change in population size as a general thing in Europe, which will impact the way you can or cannot execute your business. We can look at the life expectancy in different angles. For instance, here you see a graph showing the difference between life expectancy of women and men. Usually women live longer, but in different countries, they don't tend to live that much longer. For instance, in the Netherlands, it's just roughly around 4 years, whereas in Lithuania, it can be 10 years longer. You see, there are huge differences. And if you plan to address all the men, this might be more feasible to do in the Netherlands than it is, for instance, in Lithuania. The following graph is really important because it shows a significant change in the demographic. If you look at this, you can see one clear thing. The bright blue part, the biggest section, is shrinking. That is the working population, people aged between 25 and 65, are decreasing in the future. That means that there will be fewer talents. There will be fewer people to work. There will be fewer taxpayers. There will be more need for people to work on elderly care because there are few people, but more older people. Listen, this is one of the drastic changes we're expecting. This is already happening. Just remember, everybody who's going to be in the workforce in 20 years from now in Europe is already born. We know there is a huge shortage up our doorstep. So now we know that this change in the working population is happening, but where is it happening? This is where the following graph gives you a very good indication. The more yellowish and orange the color is, the smaller the amount of working population becomes, whereas in the blue areas it stays similar or it is increasing. And if you look once again carefully here, you see that the biggest changes are happening in Germany, and more specifically in East Germany, except for Berlin. That gives you a very clear indication where a good business could actually be happening. Because if there are fewer people working there, still the older people are there, elderly care, healthcare startups are more than welcome in these areas. And Germany is the largest economy of them all, the largest population in Europe, something like 80 plus million. Okay, keep that in mind. So we know that the working population is shrinking the most in Germany, some parts of Spain, some parts in the Baltic areas. Okay, but the big thing is really happening in Germany. If you're interested to do some business in Germany, I highly recommend the videos up here to take a deeper look and understand what is really happening here. You've seen now some drastic changes in the demographics in all of Europe. And we've seen problems arising specifically for Germany, where the working population is kind of diminishing. That has big impacts, and that's something you should be aware if you plan to start a business. Look, first of all, we will have problems with taxation, because if the fewer people work, the fewer taxes will be paid. If we have more retirees, we have to pay the retirement. Who's going to pay their pensions? You know, all these things are important to know and understand. Nonetheless, if we have an aging population, we also have the need for more care, because the more people are getting older, the older they get, the more likely they are to become in need of a doctor or of somebody else to help them. There is this very wonderful graph here I want to share with you, showing the dependency of where you live and how many healthy years you will have before things become troublesome. They will become troublesome for everyone. Nonetheless, this is the largest and biggest single business opportunity of them all, because there is a lack of people and startups and small businesses willing to help those people in need who are getting older, who will be sick for sure, who will need the help because they don't have a family to take care of them. Everything I've showed you today actually means opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. And Europe is aware of the situation. At least that's what they claim. So they want to do a lot of things, they want to keep people working longer, but I'm sure that's not going to happen, because people cannot work longer. They're simply not done to work longer, especially if you've worked in a hard manual labor job like a brick builder or whatever. These jobs, it's impossible to work longer. The second thing is they want to educate people more, but that's already happening, etc. The biggest gap filler for everything that you should be aware is migration. And they're not mentioning it in this report because that is unpopular, but that's the way it's going to happen. And I want to drag your attention to a certain detail. How is the European population doing against, let's say, the American or the Asian population? This is an official graph from the European Union Commission, and it tells you one thing. Europe is shrinking. Asia is maybe more or less stable or slightly shrinking. But then Africa. Africa is where everything changes. There will be a population growth, a huge population growth in Africa. And Europe knows this, and they want to foster it. They want to use that growth, because becoming more efficient is not the only thing they can do in Europe. They need migration. So for everybody out there, even though they're trying to make it hard for you, maybe or not, doesn't matter. Europe needs you. And the longer that you wait, the more you will be required to come to Europe, because we're simply shrinking and the people are getting older and fewer people are here to do the jobs. Who's going to do them after all? It will be you. All right, everybody. I hope that video and short insight into the demographic change and its impact on society and on any business, small business, startup, whatever, was really helpful to you. If you made it so far in the video, please subscribe and push the notification bell because it really, really helps this channel to grow. I thank you for watching and I'm going to see you next time.